Well, it may be more than one super story. I started a couple minutes early. We'll give it a few minutes. I don't know who's all going to come in. Hey, Eric, can you see me? I don't know if you left. My thing tells me there's nobody here. Oh, okay. I don't know why it says there's nobody here, unless because I started early. I don't know. Oh, it could be a slow evening. That's okay. When they first started this new format, we were having lots of people coming in. Josh is not going to be here tonight. He's on vacation. I don't know if predecessor is going to be here. And I messaged Carol, but I don't know if she's going to be here. So this is called The Gnome in Grandpa's Garden. It is one of my horror stories, sort of. My grandpa and grandma have the scariest gnome in their garden. It's not huge, but there is just something about him that scares me. His clothes and hat are painted in greens and reds. His face always seems to have a angry looking face to him or expression. And that is what scared me as a kid. I remember walking past it and being afraid that it might whack me. Grandpa told me that his name was Wilbur, and Wilbur's place in the garden looks out at the apple tree that Grandma and Grandpa had planted when they first bought the house. Wilbur has had that spot in the yard for a very long time. One day I spent the night at my grandparents' house. It was nighttime, and Grandma asked me to take something out to the garbage for her. I did as I was asked, forgetting I needed to walk past Wilbur. When I got up to him, I nervously walked past his position. I kept looking over my shoulder to see if Wilbur was behind me. Oh, hey, predecessor. As I turned my head to look at him, I thought I saw him turning his head to look at me. It could have been my imagination, but there will always be a part of me that believes what I saw that night. From where he stood, he could see me at the garbage cans. I didn't see any movement, but I thought I heard him moving. There was no doubt in my mind that the gnome was watching me. It bothered me so much that I had nightmares about him. Grandpa, of course, told me that everything was okay. He also said that Wilbur was a clay garden gnome who couldn't hurt me. I wasn't buying any of it. I did feel comforted though. I even fell back to sleep. It didn't change how I felt about Wilbur. In fact, he still freaked me out something fierce. Grandpa's little speech did nothing to calm my fear of that garden gnome. Grandpa asked me if I wanted to stargaze with him on another occasion. They owned a large lot with the house in the middle. Grandpa laid out a large quilt out in the front yard. He also invited the rest of his grandchildren to attend. All my cousins arrived, and soon we were all having fun. The good news is that Wilbur couldn't see us, but he could hear us. Tonight might just be the night Grandpa finally believes us about the gnome moving. True to my words, as we were coming back from the backyard, Grandpa caught sight of Wilbur, and he did, in fact, move. Grandpa was beside himself. He had no idea that the family heirloom could move, yet he did. There was no denying it. Wilbur had moved, and now my grandpa knew. He didn't throw the gnome away, which surprised me. Wilbur was transferred to a spot in the garden where little kids at play were less likely to bump into him. He seemed more content in his new location. My cousins and I are happier too, because we don't have to cross paths with him. Wilbur seems a lot less scary. When my grandpa and grandma died, I moved Wilbur to my yard to live. That was inspired. That one is called the Gnome in Grandpa's Garden. And it was inspired by my niece, who is now in her 30s and is afraid of garden gnomes. This next one is called I Hear Shells. And I have told some people about it. But there is a creature that lives in, I believe it's Scotland or Ireland. Oh, it's got to be Scotland. And it is all about a creature there called the Shellycoat. And you'll learn a little bit about it in the story. Shellycoat. Last summer, we spent the entire summer at my dad's family's house, which is still, by the way, in the family. It was my older sister, my parents, me, and my dad's parents. We spent the first night relaxing around the home. Grandpa promised us that he had an interesting day planned for us. Near their home, there is a museum that features life-size models of the supernatural creatures that are said to roam Scotland. He thought that my sister would enjoy it. Early the next day, after a big breakfast, we took off for the museum. We met our guide for the day inside the building. Her name was Sophie. She was bright, cheery, and she knows her creatures. We saw so many different monsters and creatures there. All our questions were answered. Some of the creatures are downright spooky. The ones that stood out to me were the Kelpie, Nessie, Shellycoat, the Nucklevee, the Washerwoman, the Gilly-Dee, and the Selkie. Personally, I didn't like the Washerwoman or the Nucklevee. They were just a little bit creepy. On the other hand, I also found them very interesting. I had no idea what the night would hold for me, though. I was in bed when a sound from outside woke me up. It may have been in my imagination, but I heard what sounded like someone moving around outside. As it drew closer, the sounds became clearer, and I could hear the clatter of seashells. Is this the creature from the tour? Apparently, I was not the only one woken up by the noise. My sister was also woken up by it. We were more curious than scared. Well, I was a little scared. It must have woken Grandpa up as well. He met us at the front door. He told us that the house sits about 300 feet away from the river. And he told us that what we were hearing was in fact a shellycoat. Grandpa also told us that the shellycoat visits their property because my great-grandma always left him something out for the spirit. The spirit continues to visit the yard even today. Grandpa opened the door as we cautiously stepped outside. Oh no, what did it do? Okay, I'm hoping that it didn't mess up because there was two. I don't know if you can see it, but that's the page I just read to you. And that page is blank. Okay, I guess not. I guess it just, for some reason, didn't do what it was supposed to do. Something was moving towards the river. We heard it, too. The noise was that of 1,000 clamshells clacking together. There was something else happening, too. Off in the distance, with just the waning moon for light, we saw it off in the distance. And now we're hearing a voice, a soft voice. Come, children, come to my stone so I can see the descendants of Fern. We started to move, but Grandpa grabbed our hands. Sorry, but this isn't a ghillie-doo. You could be hurt. Grandpa wasn't about to allow us to get any closer to the Fae, or whatever is out there. When it realized that we were not coming out to meet it, it taunted our grandpa. Kincaid, Kincaid, let them come and play in my river. A wild, hysterical laugh filled the air, and it wasn't long after that we heard the shells coming closer. Sure enough, the form was moving in our direction. We wanted to run to the house, but Grandpa held fast to a spot. He's trying to scare you. The laugh starts up again, and this time the creature stops 100 yards away from us. It was a sight that I will take to my grave. It appeared to be no taller than 5 feet. The coat of shells was visible, and the creature was shaking them. And then it turned, its shells rattling so loud that I thought the entire countryside might wake up. Only now did Grandpa turn around, and as we headed back to the house, Grandpa laughed as we entered the house. That old goblin was taunting you kids. They like to play jokes, especially this one. It would always taunt us kids, trying to get us to come play in the river. Your great-grandmother taught us to ignore its taunts. She wouldn't even allow us to fish at the river without an adult. I was curious why she would do that when Sophie said they were harmless. I asked Grandpa about that. And Grandpa, I thought they were harmless, I said, and then our grandma came out of the kitchen to join us. She sat down on the couch, and then she called us over to her. We sat beside her, eager to hear what she had to say. I take from the sound of the shells and the laughter that you heard and saw the shellycoat. I heard the question that you asked Grandpa, and I can't answer that question while Grandpa gets you a snack. Sorry, guys. And I can answer that question while Grandpa gets you a snack. Sophie was right, but they are jokers, and they like to cause travelers to get lost. They'll even trick you into entering the river, where they might unalive you just for fun. Sophie had left that part out of her tale. Who knows what would have happened had we headed towards the river? We were a bit shaken up by the events of the night. With the rising of the sun, we felt a lot braver. As we played in the area by the house, our dad joined us. He wanted to see if we wanted to go fishing. We agreed, even though we knew that somewhere in that river lived the shellycoats. From what we heard, these beings are active at night, so we should be good. For the next hour, we fished without any bites. On the way back, we noticed something strange. My sister had found shells along the path the creature had took the night before. The shells had holes in them, large enough to thread some pieces of rope or yarn through the holes. Some of the shells even had scant pieces of thread on them. It's no wonder that they had fallen off the coat. Our dad thought we were being funny as we picked up a couple of the shells. Come on, kids. Mom and Grandma will have lunch ready soon. We started our walk up to the house, but kept glancing back at the river. Would we hear the shells tonight? I'm afraid we will. I'm scared that it'll come looking for its property. After lunch, my sister and I pulled my grandpa to the side so we could show him our finds from earlier. We pulled the shells out of the bag that we hid them in until we knew that we could show them to him. He looked at them and examined the threads on them, and then he looked at them in disbelief. Grandfather did not look happy. You found these in the field, didn't you? We nodded our heads. We were afraid that he was mad at us, so we kept quiet. Look, kids, these shells belong to it. I know it sounds silly, but they belong to the creature. I'll go with you, but we need to put them back. The last thing we wanted to do was to steal. We gathered up the shells and followed Grandpa. Together, the three of us returned to the spot where we found the shells. We put the shells on the ground. It actually made me feel pretty good to be returning them. Grandpa patted us on the back. Good job, kids. Now let's get back to the house. Of course, we were happy to get away from the river. On the way back to the house, we were talking about the creature whose shells we returned to the field. We agreed that the shellycoat would return tonight. We don't even know what the night will look like if he does return. I slept horribly. All I could think about was the return of the monster, or whatever the shellycoat is considered. Around 10 p.m., I woke up to the sounds of the shellycoat again, and it sounded as if it were drawing closer. Getting out of bed, I walked out into the field. Oh, wait. Sorry. I lost my place. Getting out of bed, I walked out into the hallway to find my grandpa and my sister. He smiled at me and patted my back. Are we going outside? He asked me. I didn't want to, but being with my sister gave me courage to see the beast. As he went outside, the shellycoat moved closer, and the shells grew louder. We could hear the voice above the shells proclaiming, "The children, the children! Returned my shells." It seemed to be quite happy with us returning the shells. It isn't done yet, though. Thank you, kind children, for being so nice. Grandpa patted us on the back. It felt good knowing that the creature recognized our good deed. The fact that Grandpa recognized our good deed as well made us equally happy. Who knew that a creature like the shellycoat could feel emotions like gratitude? We left Scotland that year a little bit more open-minded about the world around us. My sister and I used to assume that all supernatural beings were imaginary beings. We knew better now. Of course, we keep it to ourselves because, after all, who would believe us? Now, when we hear a voice in the darkness, we know to either ignore it or walk away very quickly. 20 years later, we return to Scotland and our ancestral home. On the day that we arrived, we walked to the river and said hello without even looking back. Later that night, we heard the familiar sounds of shells. My sister and I stepped out on the step of the home and we listened to see if it would speak. Look, look, my little ones are all grown up. The shellycoat came within 15 feet of me. It stood there, looking at me, and then it turned and left. Before it returned to the river, the jolliest laugh I've ever heard in my life came out of its mouth. We spent a week up here at the house, and every night we went outside to listen for the shells and hear its voice. The last night proved to be hard on us. We didn't expect the creature to cause us to become emotional, which was really weird. I don't know why I wrote that in. Last time, don't cry, think of me, look down on the ground for a prize. There on the ground, where the creature had been standing, were 2 shells, one for me and one for my sister. We checked with the wildlife officials after coming up with a story about how we had been down by the river and found these shells. They gave us a glance and handed the shells back to us. One of them looked at me and asked where we found them. I explained about my grandfather and the house and how it's in the family. We have had reports of sightings, reports of people getting lost out there, and campers who heard the clacking of seashells, and some very wicked laughter. All of this happening in the same area that your family has their property. We have to be on the river, so we do everything we can to avoid upsetting your spirit. This actually made perfect sense to me, because I know how sneaky our shellycoat can be. They actually gave us a letter of exemption and told us to show it to customs and to claim it. I'm 50 now, and that shell is my most prized possession. I'm ending my account now, and I hope it becomes the property of one of my kids, and eventually one of our grandkids. So what did you guys think of that one? A little bit maybe on the soft side, but I'm thinking kids might be reading this at some point, so yeah. Y'all are quiet. Hello, everybody that's in chat. This one is called The Helping Bag. And it is a fantasy story. 2 years ago in a distant land, a little girl lived in a home with her parents, her 3 brothers, and her grandparents. Her life was anything but easy. The same can be said for others who live around her. She worked hard with her mom to tend the garden, care for the animals, and help with meals. She also cared for the lone apple tree. By the time night came, she was tired, and there were still chores to be done. On this particular evening, she needed time to herself. She really needed a break from everyone else. She walked to a spot near the river when the night was done. Here she sits and talks to the river about her problems. Something within the water is listening to her and swims into its abode. It descends into the depths of the river. It searches its chest for something that might make the girl's life a little easier. It finds just the right item, a bag made of spun silver with golden drawstrings. The creature swims upriver a good distance so that its emergence wouldn't be seen. A quiet chant causes her somewhat fishy appearance to disappear, revealing an old woman. She has a green streak running through her gray hair. Her mouth is lined with teeth that appear human but aren't human, and she smells of the river, something her enchantments didn't cover up. She approaches the girl. As she moved towards the girl, the wrong human can smell the fishy odor coming closer. When she sees the crone coming closer to her, her mind is filled with fear. The crone has no intention of harming her. She only wants to help out. I have a present for you. The crone hands her the bag. The bag carries magic as well, and it's magic that allows the bag to hold one item at a time, and the bag holds objects that are useful to whoever holds it. The bag you hold will give you whatever you need at the moment, but I need one thing from you. I will walk with you to your family's farm. I need one chicken egg. Once I have the egg, the magic will be released into the bag. She follows the girl to the farm. The girl steals the egg from a hen, and she passes it to the old crone. The crone sniffs the bag and then lightly taps the shell. The girl has absolutely no clue what the old woman is up to. She gently puts the egg to her lips. Her sharp teeth penetrated the shell, but instead of sucking out its contents, she swallowed the egg, shell, and all. The girl was stunned. You kept your promise, you kept your promise. And she stomped her feet and then whistled loudly. A noise causes the girl to spin around. As she does, the hag disappears from sight. Deep in her watery abode, she rubs the gem within her sitting room, and this action awakens the magic in the bag, allowing the girl to use it. She takes the bag into the home and brings it to her sleeping room. There she places the bag under her head and goes to bed. During the night, she gets up and lifts her head. She got cold and couldn't sleep. Taking the bag in her hand, she loosens the drawstrings, and reaching in, she pulls out a blanket. Wrapping herself in the blanket, she replaces the bag under her head and falls back asleep. In the morning, she gathered berries, but her basket was missing. Again, she reached into the bag and pulled out a new basket made of willow. She went on to pick berries, and the rest of the day she gets by without using the bag. The next day, she worked in the garden, and everything went well. She went back to the river to get water when she sees a young boy in the water. He's in trouble and needs saving. At first, she panics and goes to get help, but then she remembers her gift. Turning back to the river, she opens her bag and pulls out a rope. She throws it to the boy. "Grab the rope," she shouts to the boy, who grabs hold of the rope. She begins to pull him to safety. It's hard work, but she manages to get him to the bank. "Are you okay?" she asks the boy, who simply nods his head. You can tell he's tired from his ordeal. The boy collapses on the riverbank. Resting for a bit, he eventually gets up and rests. Going home, she too lay down for a rest. She woke in enough time to help with dinner. On her 16th birthday, the hag visited her and again asked for an egg. The girl had found true love. On her 18th birthday, she got married. Every 10 years after her wedding day, the hag would appear and return to the river with a chicken egg. This simple act of kindness kept the magic alive within the bag. After the woman's death, the bag vanished. It's possible that the hag took back the gift. The bag, indeed, was a gift that paid for itself. What do you guys think? Are they okay? Are they boring? What do you think? You guys are quiet. I know I'm reading, so it's understandable. So those are 3. And those are all going to be in the next book. Sorry, I'm flipping through. I think this one is in the first book, and hopefully I have it all here. Are you guys even in here? Like, you guys are so quiet. It's okay to ask questions or make comments as I'm reading. I drive a city bus that covers the museum district to the old city cemetery and to the university. I usually work from 5 a.m. or from 5 p.m. to 11 a.m. Many people ride the bus to get to the museum or to the university. Sometimes I get tourists who just want to see the city. I also get people who ride the bus to get out of the house. This night, I had 100 or more people ride the bus. As the evening ticked away, I was 3 stops away from the cemetery. At this time, there was one person on the bus, a young woman who was sitting right behind me. As I approached the 3rd stop from the graveyard, I noticed a man standing at the bus stop. Stopping the bus, I opened the door and he walked onto the bus. I heard the clatter of coins as he moved past me. He was wearing black pants and a black hoodie. The hoodie obscured his face. I couldn't make out his face, of course. He walks past the woman without saying anything at all. For the next 2 stops, the man sat in the seat. When I arrived at the cemetery, I stopped the bus, not expecting anyone to get off at this stop. The man stood up and moved towards the front. "Have a good evening," I said to the man. He nodded and then exited. As I watched as he entered the cemetery. As I closed the door, I could see him kneeling at a grave. As I left the man and finished my route. You might be wondering if I was freaked out. Yes, I was weirded out. As for the young lady, she too was spooked. When I returned to the depot, I looked for my manager, but she had already gone home. We had to talk, so I planned to catch her tomorrow when I arrived at work. True to my promise, I made myself wake up just a little bit early. I arrived 30 minutes early so we could have time to talk. I approached her office and knocked on the door. She was at her desk and looked up when I knocked. "Come in, Alex. How do you like the new route?" Today will be my second day on the new route. It was interesting, especially when I was approaching the... She stopped me before I could finish my sentence. "Let me guess. You had a very quiet rider get on the bus at the Lexington Avenue stop. A guy wearing black jeans and a black hoodie came on and sat in the back. He then got off the bus at the cemetery. You watched him enter the gates, and you could see him kneeling beside the grave. Don't know how she knew, but she knew about my rider." "Yes, that's exactly what happened. How do you know about him?" I was now even more curious about him and his story. She smiled as she gazed at the ceiling for a second. "He's been riding that bus for 57 years. Always gets on at Lexington Avenue and always exits at the cemetery. His name is Daniel King. By the way, all of my characters' names are created using a name generator, so none of these are based on actual people. He died April 12th, 1965. He was killed 3 days short of his 21st birthday. He was on his way to put roses on his grandmother's grave. Tonight, when he gets off the bus, have someone go back there. They'll smell roses, and Daniel Loves Joan will be put into the seat next to where he sat." I knew he was off, but I didn't know that he was a ghost. Wait, I did. I guess I knew he was a ghost. Look, he's harmless. He just wants a ride. Go out and pick up your riders. She clearly knows about my ghostly rider, and I appreciated her knowledge. The knowledge blessed me with the knowledge about Daniel and his haunting. As I started my shift and headed out, things were pretty typical for my day. I was excited over seeing Daniel tonight. However, I'm hoping for a different sort of haunted experience. Last night, I was a bit scared, even if I didn't show it or acknowledged it. I went home and wrote about it, and as I approached Lexington Avenue, I took a deep breath, because I knew what's about to happen. When I stopped at the next stop, he'll be waiting for the bus. He'll walk onto the bus, drop his coins into the slot, despite the fact that his bus doesn't take coins. He'll walk past me without acknowledging me or the other passengers. He'll sit in the back until the next stop. At the next stop, he'll get up and exit the bus. He'll pass by me without hearing me say, "Have a good night," and then he'll pass through the gates of the cemetery and kneel at his grandmother's grave. Less than 5 minutes away, I'm fine, but a little nervous. As I approach the stop, I tell myself that I'm not afraid. As I said, I brake at the bus stop and open the door. Daniel walks up the steps of the bus. That is when I see it. I see his face. Daniel would have been a handsome ghost. Or a handsome man. However, his face bears the mark of a brutal attack. Someone bashed his face in with a weapon. He walks past me and I can smell it. The smell of roses already lingers in the air. "Hi, Daniel," I say as I look into the mirror. The bus is empty tonight. Daniel takes his seat. Closing the door, the bus pulls away from the stop. No one is at the next stop, so I keep going until the next stop, his stop. When the bus comes to a complete stop, I open the door. Daniel gets up, walks to the front. Knowing he is playing out the events of that evening, I know he won't respond to me, so I snap pictures of him. He moves past me. The same smell fills the air for just a few seconds, and by the time it fades, he's gone. Daniel takes his position and then vanishes into the night. I close the door and head for the depot. I've seen his face, and I'm a little scared. No sight in the world could have prepared me for that night. I don't know why Daniel makes this trip every night. Does his tragic death have something to do with it? His death was pointless, or at least that's what I felt when I saw his face. The spirit who moved past me died at the hands of cowards. Hopefully they were brought to justice for the crime they committed that night. I wish there was a way to make things right for him. Hopefully, wherever he is, he knows that I'm sorry about his killing. I'm hoping he finds peace at some point in eternity. Perhaps he has, and all of this is just some stamp in time. So that one was called Stranger on the Bus, and I think that is in my first book. Oh, wow, 7 people? No way. Hello, everybody. If you're here and I haven't responded, let me know. Can somebody type something so I know that you guys are actually, like, here and I'm not frozen? What do you guys think? Was that decent? Was it not? I don't know. Hopefully it's decent. I should probably talk a little bit about the stories before I actually start reading them. I'm going to read next a story called... Hopefully I didn't pass it up. Are you guys all, like, in bed, sleeping? Because... Wow. Okay, so this is called Peace and Quiet. It is one of my favorite stories, I think, in the second book so far. I am Henry Marshall. Oh, the story is called... It is not called When You See It. It's called Peace and Quiet. This was written last year, I think. And it is about a vampire. I am Henry Marshall, and I was reborn in 1342. When I was 17 years old, I was attacked by a creature on my way home from dropping stuff off at a merchant's house on behalf of my father. It followed me from the graveyard, where those who couldn't be buried in holy ground were buried. Somewhere between there and home, the accursed beast latched onto me. 4 nights later, I died and was buried in unhallowed ground. A few nights later, I awoke into a new world. I was reborn as what you might call a vampire. I live, and yet I walk amongst the dead. I have for centuries thrived amongst the darkness. For those same centuries, I have survived because of my undying need for blood. Our hunger for blood forces us to feed on the blood of the living. We stalk, hunt, and then bite. Once bitten, I drink till I cannot drink any more from that person. It feels like I've always gained sustenance this way. I don't know how to explain the feeling of blood. Sorry, this might be a little bit graphic. How I feel about the blood going down my throat, but it has kept me going since I was turned so long ago. My kind needs the blood of the living to sustain our undead life. For centuries, I have taken one life every night since 1342. My body count is beyond most mortals' ability to count. Now I'm bored with it. The hunt, the drinking of blood, and the taking of human life. I've embraced this creature's existence for much too long. I've seen epidemics and pandemics sweep through the children of men. I've watched the living kill each other in senseless wars. My eyes have seen disasters befall the living, crippling them and unaliving many. My eyes have seen mortals unaliving one another, and I've seen mortals who deem others as inferior. Sometimes it seems like they are monsters. The living destroy that which they fear. I have seen greed turn the living against each other. They spend more time hating each other than they do healing the pains of their society. I'm tired of watching the mortal world destroying itself over and over again. Sorry. I'm tired of watching the mortal world destroying itself over and over again for no reason at all. In all my centuries, I've enjoyed the night. The moon's soft glow blessed my life, my undead life. The full moon has given me light on many a night's hunt. Most humans shy away from the night and the moon, but I've embraced the night as a vampire. My kind lives in the night, in the darkness, while we hide from the sun. The sun is our enemy. In it, there is death for my kind. It destroys us, reduces us to dust, and then frees us from our lonely existence. I feel at times when my kind embraces the night, we also embrace the loneliness of it all. We live in a lonely world. We have our guardians, the living, who watch over our resting places while we sleep. They are more slaves than they are companions. I have had brides, women who I have turned in an attempt to have companionship. They shared my resting place, but that was about it. Of course, they each had their own boxes to sleep in. Some even brought back little ones. Sorry, not gonna go there. A part of me wanted to hunt alongside a companion, sort of like lions, but we always seemed to hunt alone. I have experienced the loss of companions by hunters who are out to destroy me, but only caught my brides and their own turned mortals. Okay, guys, this will be the last one. Okay. This will be the last one of the evening. Hunters were and are a real threat to our being. They see us as evil beings. Perhaps we are evil incarnate. Or maybe we are just a different species of human who have turned to feeding on the life force of humans. It could be a curse that is passed on every time we bite someone for the third time, or maybe we give them our own blood to drink. Still, it is believed that we have some kind of illness caused by a parasite. Hunters are the reason why vampires move to new cities every few years. Hunters are also the reason why I no longer turn my prey. I'm planning my escape from this world, although I believe that it's easier to be a vampire in the modern age than in any other day. There is little that I haven't experienced, and I don't want to experience any more of this world. I could go on for centuries as long as there were mortals to provide my sustenance. Who says a vampire has to keep going until hunters or the sun destroys them? Perhaps I am wrong for doing or even thinking this, but this is what I want. For me, it doesn't feel bad. I should have died a very long time ago. For 681 years, I have walked the earth and thrived for multiple generations of humans. I just don't want to be here among mortals any longer. They truly bore me, and this insane world does too. So, I'm not going to finish the story because you can, maybe once this book gets published, maybe you'll decide to buy it. I don't know. Again, that was Peace and Quiet. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit darker than my other story that I have. It does deal with a topic that is not smiled upon, which is why I stopped reading it. Thanks for coming in and enjoying live tonight. It means a lot to me. We are going to be back on track on Tuesday. Took a little bit of a break from being so serious all the time. Tuesday we are doing the prehistoric animals in my collection. Oh, I'm sorry, prehistoric mammals in my collection. And we'll be learning a little bit about them. I think I have 9 animals that fit that category in my collection, so we'll be looking at them and talking about them. Eric, I wish I knew exactly what you wanted me to bring in for tomorrow. You guys are so quiet. I don't know if I want to do any more story times. I think this is going to be a thing that we don't do. I feel like I put you guys to sleep. Anyway, I may be changing time on Saturdays. I haven't decided. I will make my mind up this week. Anyway, guys, I need to go. I will talk to everybody Tuesday. I am going live tomorrow at, I think it's 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on the other channel. If you are not a member of that channel, message me and I will get the link to you if you're interested. It's just going to be us talking. So, yeah. In case you're wondering, Josh is on vacation. That's why he's not with us tonight. Yeah. So, I will talk to you later. Have a good evening. Carol, I will not be calling you tonight because it's late. Sorry for not getting back to you. We will talk later about why and everything. Yeah. So, I will talk to you later. Guys, everybody, have a great evening. Remember to never give up on yourself and always keep learning. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye